Hi there, it's Tracy DeVette from tracydevette.com. This video, I would like to give you some hints and tips about having anxiety and how to alleviate it using what's called the butterfly hug. So the butterfly hug was discovered a few years ago by an eminent psychotherapist. So to do the butterfly hug, you take your hands, lock your thumbs together, put your hands here so that your fingers are pointing upwards and they're also tapping on your collarbone. And then you just start one side and then the other, like flapping the wings of a butterfly. And this does two things. It crosses the midline, which is means it's a pattern interrupt exercise for your brain, because you know we have two different hemispheres and they are connected, but they think in slightly different ways. We call crossing the midline, which is confusing the brain ever so slightly because it's having to think with one hemisphere and then the other. So if you've got stuck in a negative thinking pattern, this can actually cause what we call a pattern interrupt, and that's a good thing. The other thing is there are different ways that people use this. It's been used for PTSD and trauma, and the outcomes have been very good. But as we're going, we're just flapping the wings backwards and forwards and just tapping on that collarbone ever so lightly. You can feel it. And if your heart is racing because you're having a panic attack or an anxiety attack, just start doing this. And eventually your heart rate will slow to the rate that you're doing this to. It will slow your heart rate down. It will also take focus off whatever's making your subconscious feel very, very scared, because that's all anxiety is. Your subconscious has perceived something as being very scary. It may not be anything scary in the cold light of day, but for some reason it's got the message that that is scary. So for somebody who's an agoraphobic, it's even just going out the front door would be perceived as scary, even though it's not particularly dangerous and millions of people do it safely every day. So you're just doing backwards and forwards. And the way that you can get it to work for you is if you have any thoughts that are making you scared. This is a great way to just take some time. By doing this, you're just allowing those thoughts to come up. You're not judging them. You're not worried by them. You're not scared of them. You're just allowing them to come up like a curious onlooker. Like, what could this fear be? How is it making me feel? What physical symptoms is it giving me? What could that be about? Even though some rather profound things can come up, this is a great way of you being able to handle them. Sometimes when we've been through trauma in the past, our system spends a lot of energy trying to keep that suppressed, keep it down, because it doesn't think that we can handle it. Because at the time, it was that scary, subconscious pushed it down and has been trying to keep the lid on it ever since. But doing the butterfly hug can be a safer time to just let these thoughts come up, just like an onlooker, but we're feeling them in our body. We're feeling them come up. We are detaching ourselves from them slightly, looking at them with curious eyes. We're just allowing it to come up, and we're feeling it, feeling the emotion, but not in an overwhelming way, as with PTSD, what it normally does. We're allowing it to come up without overwhelming us, but we're allowing it to come up, allowing ourselves to experience that emotion, that feeling in a very safe and natural way. And the incredible thing is what they found is if you bring these thoughts up that might be based on a trauma, and when I'm talking about trauma, I don't necessarily mean anything particularly violent. It might have just been something surprising and scary at the time that in the cold light of day may not be that scary or traumatic at all. So just think of, let's say you were a child and you were only 2 years old and somebody shouted at you for doing something. Now, when you're that little, people look like giants, don't they? And they're obviously authority figures, and they're very loud and very scary. So it could have just been an adult shouting at you, but it was perceived as traumatic at the time. It's these feelings and sensations that we're just going to allow to come up. We're not going to question them. We're not going to suppress them. We're not going to really allow them to overwhelm us, but we can feel the feeling. So let's say it's the loss of somebody significant in our lives, or it could even be the loss of a dear pet that was never dealt with at the time, because people tend to want to shush and say, don't cry and don't get upset when people should be getting upset. Because if we get upset at the time, it might seem uncomfortable for other people to watch, but it's actually a great way of just releasing all of that emotion and all that sorrow and all that sadness at the time. And it's a good thing, not a bad thing, because if you suppress it, then it just sits there building up over years. So if there is some loss in your life, some sadness, using it with the butterfly hug technique is a really good way of letting that go. If it's something that seems really traumatic and you'd like some help with that and somebody to talk you through it, then please get in touch. I'll be very happy to help you in a session to bring up those traumatic memories and just help you along the way so it doesn't become overwhelming. But it does release all of this stuff that's basically taking a lot of energy to suppress. And what's happening is when it's taking all that energy to suppress, it's not just taking up your mind resources, it's also utilizing your bodily resources, because our system, mind and body, operates on chemicals. So every thought that you have is an electrochemical impulse, and it uses up energy. That energy, for the most part, is glucose, but it's also using up vitamins and minerals as well. So it's a great thing to let all of this negativity from the past go, and that will reduce your fear, it will reduce your anxiety, and it will reduce panic attacks. So as always, thanks for watching, thanks for listening. Tracy from tracydevette.com. And if you need any help in this, it's a very genuine offer. Get in touch and I can help you through that.